Welcome back, everybody. A fresh face, a few more games to go out throughout this day. And as always, I'm going to be joined by both Foreign and Sean Gares joining us on the desk. How are you guys feeling? You had a good start?
Yeah, pretty good, man. How's it feel to be here?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah,
I get to go with the big boys on the big desk. And
like upgraded from Trace.
upgrade.
Yeah, we upgraded.
Well, okay. Being thrown compliments already. Just the fluff.
Getting us going.
Just wants to make me feel good, Duncan. I'm sure you'll wreck me a little bit later. Right?
It's a hard job, but someone's got to do it.
Yeah, makes sense. So we're going to be starting with BIG taking on Fragsters, right? Now, BIG, we've seen a lot from them quite recently, looking like a slightly better team since having Smooya involved. Fragsters, we don't see them at the top levels, but they've been grinding their way throughout it. They're in MDL. They're playing hardcore at the moment. What are your first opening thoughts for this? Because surely BIG are quite heavily favoured.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Obviously, BIG is playing the Tier 1 lands now. We saw them at the Major make top 8. Obviously, the epic ESL1 Cologne result. If you can beat FaZe Clan in the best of 3, it's pretty legit. But the Fragsters team, as you say, have been grinding. They've been going to those DreamHack Opens, etc. And they've had some solid results. They've had upsets here and there. Obviously, they're a very young squad. They don't have established names, so they haven't been winning the tournament. So on paper, people are going to think, oh, these are worlds apart. No chance whatsoever. But you look at the Fragsters team, one of the things that people are crediting them for is they've got some up-and-coming talents, actually. Yeah. And one of the things I think about the BIG squad that is a little bit overplayed is I feel as though they don't have quite enough firepower to be as good as they could. Like I think the system's good. A couple of the players are really legit. Still a few pieces I'm a bit unsure about. So maybe there's a bit of wiggle room if we get the right veto.
Yeah, I think ironically, the biggest thing for BIG is if Nex is going to show up, because a lot of times he doesn't.
Yes.
But when Nex shows up in the server, you can always really depend on Smooya and Tabson to have decent games at this point for BIG. But Nex is the one wild card, actually, and they need that third star to come through. Fragsters, on the other hand, that's a weird team that actually, on Misfits, I looked a lot into. I randomly stumbled across them in a match, and they have crazy strats. Like, they do some of the coolest smokes. They're really innovative when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I think that style of their game could catch BIG off guard, but they struggle tremendously in those late game scenarios. They don't really have the experience to come through in those scenarios, and I think that's where probably BIG has the edge throughout this entire game.
And the tough part is going to be the veto, because one thing I will give the BIG team credit for, even though I'm not sure they're that deep on a lot of the maps, like there's not that many I think they're like world beaters on, they have a pretty wide map pool. Like they can play most of the maps.
I think I actually talked with one of them at the Major, and they're comfortable playing all 7 maps. But like you said, I mean, they're like that restaurant where you can order spaghetti and chicken nuggets and pizza. None of them are probably going to be very good, but they can play any map, which means that if they can play you on your 4th, 5th best map in a best of 1 and be fine with it.
Well, that was why at the Major they ended up playing, I think it was Complexity right on Nuke. There was something like that where they ended up, or maybe it was not, I forget who it was.
It was Nuke, yeah.
But yeah, and that's a map where you saw there, they haven't played it very much. It's not a great one. But that shows they're practicing even that map. They really do only have one permaban, which is Cash.
Now, moving on to Fragsters, one of the things I wanted to kind of highlight here was just Starvin, young 16-year-old. When he was 15, we saw him in his early stages coming up. He was looking insane, but he has dropped off a little bit as he started to go up against these bigger teams. Kind of what are your thoughts going into this on like what they can deliver? Because they technically do have more firepower if you put it on paper.
Yeah, that's the player that the 2 players everyone always talks about. This one is Starvin, and then Refresh, the guy you saw there with the epic 80s high top fade. Love it myself, but the old Dominic Wilkins. No, the thing is, Starvin's the player where obviously because of his age and inexperience, it's not time yet to play for North or Optic or one day Astralis. But people are looking at him like he's the next person to go up through that like very, very obviously decorated, tenured Danish scene, which is so hard to get to the top of at the moment. But this is the ideal sort of a team to do it on. When with no expectations, you've had a few experiences at certain lands, you're getting to play against some of the bigger teams here. And so if you can prove yourself just individually, you don't have to win the game, that's where you start to build the rep that you're going to become a legit player going forwards. Because obviously, we know Denmark goes very, very deep in terms of talent.
I mean, we just saw two teams from Denmark play in that last matchup. We have Astralis as well.
Well, one, there was 2 in the server.
Yeah, it's that issue. One of them didn't really show up after the 4th round. They decided to take it off. But yeah, Fragsters, honestly, you don't really think of them as being from Denmark because there's so much talent in Denmark that you forget about teams like this. And they're actually contenders to upset teams like BIG. Like, if they were in a different region, we'd probably talk about them a lot more, actually.
Sure.
So in terms of the map pool, we're obviously thinking that Big's got the bigger to play with here.
Yes.
But
Well,
in terms of Fragsters, what do you expect from
Well,
them?
especially because I noticed there, actually, like the maps that they don't seem to want to play is they don't play Cache either, which
Yes.
is obviously Big's permaban. So Big could actually maybe force them to ban that. And then it looked like their win rate on Nuke, they hadn't played that very much either. And those are the two maps that in theory Big doesn't want. So that's actually not that great for Fragsters. On the one hand, I guess you could be optimistic and say if they play amazingly, they're getting the maps they like. But if you're Big, it means your Big's almost certainly going to map they want.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw, I mean, they only really had success on 2 maps when you look at their map pool, and that was Train and Inferno. And if I know Big from the majors, they're definitely going to stray from those maps. I highly doubt we're going to see Big allow Fragsters to get Train or Inferno, where they had 70% win percentages on both maps. So
at the moment, we're just playing chicken with who's going to ban Cache, basically.
Yeah.
So there we go. I think what will happen is Big themselves probably just bans Nuke, and then we get to something we want. So Trains was still available at that point in time. Big actually likes that map, I know.
Yeah.
But
they do, yeah.
Again, take it out because it's Fragsters, like you said, Sean. So
no, it'll be interesting to see whether Big bans Inferno
I'm
with this
guessing
last
we're
ban
g-
and plays Nuke.
that would be the ballsy one, but
Yeah.
I think we just get to Inferno at this point in time. Because if you are the favorite and it's in this kind of setting, do you really want to go for a map that... Here's the thing, though, I will say, they've done it. The Big team, by the way, this is my point I always
like
make
this.
about them. They practice all the maps, but I think they're actually a little bit delusional because what they try to do in the veto is they often actually sort of out-veto themselves because since they've decided they know all the maps, they try to always get the trick play like this, where because
Yes.
Nuke was left, they're not really picking this. Look at the results there. They're
Yeah.
not picking it because they're amazing on Nuke. They're picking it because they've practiced it. They think from practice they're good, and more importantly, they think that Fragsters is terrible. So they're actually trying to punish at this point in time. Not usually something you see in a best of one, actually.
Yeah, Big is... There's multiple ways to approach the vetoes. One is always picking to your strengths, and another is picking to your opponent's weaknesses. And Big always goes for the opponent's weakness.
Yes.
They'll always try to pick the map that they think you're worse on, and they're slightly better on, as opposed to picking a map that you guys are both great on. Which is I don't know how I feel about it when it comes to you being the superior team skill-wise, like in this matchups, and experience-wise. So it'll be interesting how this plays out.
And I'll give credit, even though the map win rate looked terrible for Big there, one of them was against Na'Vi. And to be fair, Na'Vi is like underratedly good on that map. They definitely can play it.
And at the major, when they ended up playing Complexity on it, that was actually a shocking veto for Big. Big thought that Complexity was going to pick Train when it came down to the last 2 maps. Based on prior vetoes, it looked like that's what Complexity would do. But they just kind of like scheming backstage, prepared super heavily on Nuke and shocked Big with that pick. So they might not have been ready for that at the major.
Now, we see a lot of the Danish lineups, right, pick into Nuke. We see that played more than a lot of regions. Do you think this maybe gives Fragsters a slight chance going into it? Because we saw they obviously do play it, but not against the same caliber of teams as Big.
Yeah, the issue is, like, I actually think for Big, this is a punish that makes sense because if you're playing an inexperienced team, a team that hasn't even played that many times on LAN recently, that's exactly what you want. You want to put them in positions where they're uncomfortable. You want them to be in a situation where they haven't prepared heavily for this map. In fact, actually, same scenario probably presented itself for Fragsters. If they were looking at the veto there, they're thinking, oh, no problem. They kick out Nuke, and we just get to play Inferno. We both like that map. You know, that's what you actually are planning for. You don't think that you're going to get to one of the only 2 maps you don't like at the end of the veto.
Well, we're looking at it to get underway very shortly, but what are your kind of thoughts on, do you think this will just be Big doing it, or does it rely on maybe Fragsters can all individually perform that they could shut this down early?
Well, it's like I said, that really is where the interesting part of the discussion is for me, because despite the fact that Big's had these nice placings and they've had these runs and beaten top teams, I don't think that the firepower from top to bottom is that crazy. I mean, I even thought like God B, for example, was overperforming recently in the major. You don't normally expect much from him. So if the Fragsters players are these like hungry, up-and-coming players, people who want to prove themselves, just in terms of fragging, you could really make it an even match some degree in that sense if you can kind of balance it out that way.
And also, based on what I saw at a Big on Nuke at the major, I mean, no team other than Astralis can consistently perform in their T-side Nuke. So I actually think this knife round that we're about to see to decide, who starts on CT side, could be super important, especially for a team like Fragsters. If they can get the momentum on their CT side, build a double-digit half, I mean, they could easily take this game.
Now, we saw actually Fragsters play this at the Bets.net Masters last time around when they were playing against some of the more top-end teams, one of their first kind of early starts of it. And one thing they definitely did do is when they got the ball rolling early, they got the momentum. You could see just the confidence and how hungry they were to take the wins here. So I think it could be very key on how it starts off for them. Big to choose sides, most likely choose CT.
Likely so, yeah. I think the interesting thing to look out for is if Fragster is going to use utility that probably we haven't seen, because whenever I watch them, I always see them use a smoke or a molly that I have never seen. So it's always really interesting to me to watch a team like Fragsters because they can shock you with like a one-off strat, but it's whether they can piece together an entire half and a game plan, which is something I haven't seen them be able to do when it comes to playing top-tier opponents.
And then there's also the factor for Big, which is actually playing this map. I can see why it hasn't been one that they've emphasized a lot, because it takes away from some of their strengths. Like they have the dual AWP set up with Tabson and Smooya. It's way harder to get even one AWP rolling on nuke. And get it two going, that's actually pretty tough.
Yeah, and I guess the long game there would be the economy side of things for them, right? If they're going to try and play and double up on nuke, it will come to kind of pay off and be difficult for them. So to round this up, guys, your predictions for it, how do you think it's going to go? Starting with you, Duncan.
I think there's some play on this one because of the map, but I'm going to go ahead and go with the favorite. I'll say Big gets it. I think they're just the better squad. They've got more experience. Clearly, they were the ones who had the choice to take this. I'm trusting in them to know what they're doing on this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think an inexperienced team starting T-side nuke against a team that picked nuke and has a game plan, this is like the nightmare scenario for Fragsters, and I can't see Big dropping this map.
Okay, so a desk that's saying it's all going to Big, and now it's time for us to get into the game and give it over to our commentators, I believe. I'll wait for that information to come through. I'm waiting to know what's going to happen. Should be Vendetta and Harry ready to do it. Vendetta and Harry, what do you think about that? How do you think this is going to go? Time for you to get your first game underway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this one, Halvor. You know, we're getting ready. Me and you were just kind of speaking about this. I'll be honest. I think, you know, heading into Nuke, it's going to be interesting. I don't think we should be sleeping, though, on the Fragsters, guys. Had the pleasure to see them play back in Valencia recently, and they look pretty good there. They topped the group. I'm trying to think who their wins were against. I do have it written down. Yeah, they have wins over Kinguin and Luminosity. You know, Kinguin kind of... they actually recently just won that DreamHack Open Montreal, if you recall. So, you know, like maybe not like the best opponent, definitely maybe not the same caliber as Big, but still, like, they've taken a couple of wins versus some talented teams recently. Even on the run up to this, placing, I think it was third at I don't know, some event that went on in Poland. I don't remember what it was called, but they did pretty good there. I don't think people should be sleeping on them. You know, like these guys seem to do pretty good in the group stages. Maybe when there's a little less pressure, you know, coming into this as the underdog. So I think they could give Big a run for their money.
Absolutely, and you have to consider the fact that this is a fairly new team in that sense. And, you know, Twitch chat can take their moment to actually vote for who they think is going to win this game, whether or not it's going to be Big or Fragsters in the chat. It seems like, for now, Fragsters has a pretty big advantage. I'm not sure if it's like a majority Danish viewership coming into this.
I mean, you know, Danes love Danes. That's what we always
Danes
say.
love Danes and Danes love Counter-Strike. That's for sure. And, but, like, for me, I'm totally on board with you, really. Like, we can't underestimate Fragsters. You have to consider the fact that they were a fairly recent addition to like international tournaments and actually traveling around to compete, and they're still an extremely young team. I mean, you got Stavin, who's probably one of the, if not the biggest Danish talent on the scene right now. You're probably among the top 5 in Europe altogether. He's only 16. I think Bubsky, Torben, all around the same age as like, well, around the 20s, early 20s. Same thing goes for Refresh as well. So they have a lot of use to play with in that sense. You know, they have plenty of time on their hands to gradually get better, and they've done so as well. As you mentioned, you know, they're doing increasingly well at DreamHack Opens and whatnot. And I think their first tournament actually was 2 Starladders ago, like their first international tournament that they qualified for. So they got their start here. That it's a venue that they know. They can kind of be, I guess, more relaxed in the setting that they find themselves in. It's not as daunting as the first time they came about, you know, playing, you know, versus a team like Big. They've already had some matching, and I think that's going to be great for them. And also, you know, you go into Nuke. Nuke can be so volatile. It's a Danish map just from the get-go. Every Danish team knows how to play this. I wouldn't be too secure, but, you know, Sean mentioned it. It's a bit of a nightmare scenario having to start on that T side.
Yeah, most definitely. The one thing as well, like, and one of the reasons I guess we're focusing on Fragsters so much is, I guess, you know, when you look at these two teams, for the people watching at home, I guess the more unknown factor is going to be Fragsters, right? Try to fill your ears with some hope here.
You got to see Big on, you know, at the major do pretty well for themselves.
Yeah.
You didn't get to see Fragsters at the major.
No. Yeah, they're working on it though. They're
getting there.
And yeah, I mean, one thing as well, though, you look over at Big, and you know, one of the things we so often speak about with someone like God B is this guy, you know, he likes to learn his opponent. He likes to have a lot to go off of. He'll sit, you know, and watch demos for hours just to kind of learn how to perfectly play into his opposition. And with Fragsters, you know, like, I mean, I guess it's going to be going their way. There isn't really that sort of bank of information to go off of. So Big, they're going to like to be playing their own game. But even if you look at how these vetoes went, Big weren't vetoing to their strengths, right? We've ended up on nuke. It's not like they've gone for, you know, like it's one
This
of
is
their
home
best.
ground.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I do think, you know, that's maybe something else that could air the way of Fragsters, perhaps. But, you know, Big, for those of you maybe who have been living under a rock, haven't seen the rise of this team, going from strength to strength. Since we saw Smooya come in, if you recall, I think Belo Horizonte was the first event that he was at. They finished, I believe it was like 5th there. They almost managed to get to that playoffs and make it into the semis. But, you know, then you think ESL1 Cologne, they come second there. They make top 8 at the major as well. So this team is definitely on the rise. But I tell you what, we don't have to wait any longer, however. We're in game, a big over on that CT side. And Fragsters, they're going to be kicking things off over on the T side as we've come to expect. It's the 2 smokes, Molotov, and a flash between Dragonfly and Torben.
It's going to be interesting to see if they have anything special cooked up. Again, you wouldn't leave nuke in the map pool unless you had something planned. And I mean, if they want to find inspiration, you know, they don't have to look too far outside of the, you know, or they actually don't have to even go outside the country's borders. They can just look at Astralis, right? It's a pretty picture-perfect template of how you want to approach nuke. Now, though, set up towards Squeaky Door. It's probably going to be Pop Flash. Ooh, that's a nice opening from Next. Any sort of plans that Fragsters had in this round has just gone to waste. Let's just going to find one return, but Next is on point right now. Well, that was that was brutal.
Yeah, that's definitely you know, we spent that whole pre-show, you know, bigging up Fragsters, excited to see how they do in the pistol, and yeah, I mean they do just kind of get wrecked. Next, they're coming in with the 3K, and there's the odds on the screen provided by the wonderful folks over at LootBet. As you can see, you know, they are airing the way a Big, but perhaps it's not as one-sided as many people would have initially thought.
I think you probably could have gotten away with having. Big potentially, you know, had like a low 110 or something like that.
Yeah.
Still being within reason. Obviously, they come in as big favorites. I mean, you listed off their accolades, right? And they seemingly only get better and better each time we see them. But, you know, you can never really discount these underdogs. And as you said, Gabi is the kind of in-game leader who likes to really know what he's getting into in terms of what kind of opponents he's playing against. Not really that much demos to go off of versus Fragsters, at least not versus opponents where you can necessarily rely on like saying this is how they play, because you know what their opponents throw them at the lower levels isn't necessarily too easy to scope out. Torben though with a nice connection onto tabs in there. These Danes kitted out with predominantly ZZs and Eagles. Got a PT50 in there as well. It's on Dragonfly. You can also see the Dragonfly is the one who hasn't actually opted in for any sort of Kevlar, so he's looking to potentially get an op, which is pretty difficult to play with on that T side. Tijin actually going to give away his position as well with that Molotov. Still going to be able to help handle Torben as he moves in, but all of a sudden, positive trade for Fragsters.
Yeah, this has turned into a very, very bad-looking round from Big. Now, Smooya is going to try and do what he can. Does manage that first kill, but it's Next over here on the ramp looking to try and rendezvous with him. He's been tagged up. It was a great performance from him in the pistol where he managed 3. He's got to try and do that again now, but it's not happening. And Fragsters on the back of the CZs, the back of the very small investment that they had into this round, they're going to go ahead and steal a very, very early T-side round here with that 4 spy. So now for Big, pressure's going to be on, because if Fragster's able to convert this one, then you're going to have no money on them in the next. That's essentially kind of a free 3-1 start here, which is already, you're well and truly on your way to a good T side.
Yeah, that's very promising. I mean, we talked about how so many teams struggle finding consistency on their T sides outside of Astralis, right? On a map like Nuke. For Fragsters to get a couple of freebies in there, that would be absolutely stellar, but they still have to deal with the scout on Smooya. He's going to find the tag onto Stavin as well immediately. Now, it's down to see how the Danes actually deal with this. A lot of utility spent to try to force Smooya out of position. Not really going to work too well, though, but he's getting tagged down a little bit. And they actually opt to move back outside from Yard. So the majority of the Fragsters team actually leaning heavily towards that, but seeing how they gave up initial positioning, that's allowing for Tijin to move forward on ramp. Will get punished, though. On Next, seeing if he can find a timing onto refresh, and does so as well, but gets immediately traded. So far, keeping their heads over water here, Fragsters, but constantly running into issues. Bomb dropped in the ramp. Tabson's actually going to move forward. Well, as I say that, yeah, action's going down all over the place. It's only Smooya left. Significant damage, though, done to the 3 remaining players on Fragster's side here. So this is not out of the woods completely. Well, okay, as I say that, Smooya decides to take the coward's way out.
But, yeah, I mean, that was It was looking like it was always going to be a good round for Big. You saw some trades go down early on. The second that bomb falls over towards ramp, I start thinking, this could be a real shot. You got tabseN sticking over towards that bomb. Everyone else, you can see the HPs on them. That's when that scout on Smooth, you're going to start to feel like a train when it hits you at that point in time. But fantastic recovery, I think, is what we're going to have to say the way of the Fragsters guys. I mean, so much damage being done. You had Big pushed up in these real goblin-y positions, like real, like, I mean, Tizian over towards radio. Yeah, exactly. But they're able to adjust well. They've corrected it. Now they find this second round. They're only going to have this scout over on Smooya into the next. So Fragsters looking good to get off to a 3-1 start here on Nuke.
And it's really important as well when you see the kind of adaptation they make, that they know that once their initial push towards yard doesn't pan out, they don't get the control they want right off the bat. When they swing back in, they're aware of the fact that Big could actually have moved up aggressively. They could have made moves here and there around the map and actually be aware of it. You can see that like Tizian was in a prime position to do some significant damage in radio, but gets greeted by 2 Danes, not just a sole player peeking out from Squeaky or something, but he does have his buddy with him in lobby, and that sets up a good string of events for Fragsters where they do eventually get the favorable trades, even though they do take significant amount of damage. But in the end, nets you around, and that was a pretty big investment on the side of Big.
So looking at the buy here this time for Big, they only have that one scout bulk forward. It is just going to be pistols. You have tabseN with the Zeus. I'm curious if we're going to see any magic happen, but no, not
you saw
today.
It go off.
Yeah, nice try, I guess. But yeah, there's the new MP5. I'm curious, what are your thoughts? While we have like this little bit of downtime, have you got to use the MP5 SD much yet, Halvor? Have you seen much of it?
Not much. And again, I'm not really sure if it's going to be over time a superior choice to a UMP or.
Well, it's already starting to look that way over in Pro League. I'll be honest. Like we've seen it used a lot of teams opting to pick it up. I wonder if that's like just because it's the new gun of the hour or what.
Like could be, right? Like we've seen that before as well. Before it starts to eventually fade, but it's also if the gun feels good to use, that can actually make up for what it says on paper. The UMP in theory could be better at certain things, but again, if you feel really comfortable using it, while spraying and what have you, and that's not the case with the MP5, then you can actually overcome that challenge of not necessarily doing as much damage or not having the same kind of armor penetration and so on, depending on the weapon. And that's actually going to be more beneficial for you, right? That's why you see like some players, for instance, they're not necessarily oppers, but they can be pretty good with a scout.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. The other thing I was going to say, I haven't, just this round obviously going to be going the way of Fragsters. Feel like the need to say just, it was only pistols. Tizian and actually Smee are able to go ahead and save these. So now you have that opportunity to actually run, with these into the next round. You can get extra utility on the back of it. Tizian with that MP5, as I've been saying, we've seen more and more people opt to pick this up. Throughout Pro League thus far has been the kind of real spot where we've got to see that since it was added into the actual competitive play in the operation recently.
Yeah, it was about a week ago or so.
Yeah.
And I mean, we did see it in the previous game as well. Optic and North. I mean, pretty much the entirety of North ran around with MP5s. So yeah, no, but again, could be flavor of the month. Could be something that just feels pretty good for them.
Look at this from Big. They've
decided to go for another eco.
Yeah, this is an odd decision. They're going to try and get it. This is interesting. Deciding, I guess, of course, they want to have everything they possibly need heading into this next round. And the issue is, Fragsters, they've thrown this wall of smokes outside. There's no utility here to try and deny this fast play in towards the A bomb site. So this is the perfect counter to this play from Big, leaving only Tizian up. And he's the man with that MP5 brought forward from the previous round. He has a Molotov here, but a 1v4. Well, he could try and use the molly maybe to force a player in his crosshair, try and force a 1v1 out. Even that doesn't really help him all too much, especially when you take a look at Fragsters right now. Look at how much utility is left. 4 players still up, and you've got, 3 Molotovs, 3 smokes, a plethora of flashbangs. This is unwinnable here from Tizian.
Upside of an upper push. Like, it leaves you so much utility to hold off any sort of afterplant situation. And I think in a lot of scenarios, if you can get even trades going into the bomb side, you're always going to be favored as a T side in a retake scenario or an afterplant. On the upper side of nuke, which is really tough to deal with for CTs. And well, you can tell that the guys have done their work. They know the bomb radius as well. You can see Refresh hiding around by vents. And obviously when you look at it, you can pretty much touch the bomb from that kind of a distance, but they've done their homework. That's a promising sign as well. That kind of nitty-gritty details, can actually come into play in a pretty big way, depending on the situation you find yourselves in. But obviously, Fragsters looking pretty solid for themselves. They've been given a bit of a cushion here by Big. That can mean 2 things. Obviously, what you mentioned, the fact that Big want everything at their disposal in terms of utility before they actually go into it, because they know how much worth every CT round is, and they're planning to close that out from here on out. Or it could be that Big actually has a lot of confidence in their T side.
Well, I guess only time will tell. Smooya already able to open up this round. They're going to try and run the gauntlet here against Tizian. And he's only good for one before the trade comes in. That's Torben picking it up. Now Smooya's come rotating around here from the heavens. He's going to get mollied off the angle, so they're already down and in towards this B bomb site. That's going to leave a lot of pressure here on tabseN, trying to hold this off, trying to get control of the situation. He's going to manage one. That nade might even find a second. So tabseN, the hero that they needed in this round, it is just Torben left. And he finds himself 1v4. Smooya's wrapped around, so Big going to be locking in a second round here. And that kind of felt like a pretty must-win round, though, for Big. They put so much emphasis into that one buy that had they lost it, they would have had no money. And then suddenly, you look over at Fragsters, they're in a potentially, 6-1 up scenario. Yeah. So, they're able to get back in control of things here.
Yeah, see the new FBI skins there as well. That was also launched with the MP5 update.
They look very cartoony, don't they, I think?
I don't know what to think of them yet. I think they look bulky.
They just look a bit Fortnite-y, I think is like what I've heard a few people say. Like, where are we dropping, boys? Oh, it's nuke. Yeah. But here's Dragonfly. He's looking to try and drop some people of his own here towards outside with the AWP. He's about to go toe-to-toe with Smooya.
Yeah, so Smooya in the previous round finding the opening frag as well. And that does allow you to have pretty free rotations on the side of the big team, like playing CTE's side. So even though Tizian ends up just trading 1-for-1 on ramp, you can already see that rotations had been made. tabseN made his way downstairs, in well time before they had to really deal with anything that Fragsters were throwing at them. So that can mean a whole lot. But right now we're seeing a much more passive approach from Big just altogether. tabseN tucked away towards main. No real movement from Fragsters yet, setting up for that wall of smokes outside. Whether or not they're actually going to continue with it, that's yet to be seen. And this is actually a pretty significant part about how you play T-side on nuke as well. The fact that you want to throw, these smokes, kind of give the opponents an idea of that, like, this is your standard, this is what they do every time, but you don't necessarily need to put people down secret all the time. And it's going to be an upper push, actually. Oh, tabseN. Wonderful adjustment to find two. Stamna's going to find a trade, though, but gets taken out by Tizian the second he decides to drop down vents. I mean, that's a little bit unfortunate timing. You could see Torben moving in through main there. Actually had the drop on the player on top of Hut, but has to turn around because he knows that there's a flash coming in towards that area. And that gives it's that small window of his time that would have potentially changed the round for Fragsters and allowed them to get into that upper bomb side. If you get into that upper bomb side with a 3v3, I think you're most likely favored to win that as a T. But again, if you're not able to do that quickly, then it becomes a bit of a mess of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is where, that big start from Fragsters that we were kind of alluding to the fact that they could have picked up as a result of the decision that the Big make, to dodge that buy.
Choice,
but yeah, I mean, it looks like now it's starting to pan out here for the Germans. Well, and resident Brit, I guess.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah. Can't forget.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get him in wherever you can. We're really big on pushing the old Smooya agenda over in Britain. But yeah,
for good reason though.
Technical pause going to be bought in here, so it gives us a nice time, I guess, to reflect on what we've seen thus far. Fragsters getting off to a good start, but it does feel like now that Big have these have had the rifles in hand, rather, they look very much in control of a lot of these situations, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe from Fragsters, it might be nice just to see them attempt to go for a bit of a faster play. Now they've tried the inner push rather in towards the A-bomb site a few times now. Hasn't really been working out too well for them. But I mean,
it's one of the difficulties with nuke in general, right? Once the CTs get utility, it kind of negates your opportunity to have, let's say, an upper rush as easily because Molotovs are going to be down by Squeaky. They're going to be inside Hut. So unless you want to take, a significant amount of damage before you even have seen a single CT, that's the only way you can go about it. And that's obviously not, fruitful a lot of the time. So you'll have to go back to playing, more standard slower rounds, utilize this the smoke wall out in yard a bit more often. Then try to fiddle around with, how many people you're actually gonna commit to going down secret. If they're gonna, sneak their way through garage, trying to get under heaven, all depending on what you can read out of your opponents in terms of what kind of rotations they make. If Big are the kind of team that never actually wants to fight over that wall of smokes, if they give you free passage into secret because they have a double setup, downstairs, then maybe you want to avoid that. Maybe you actually want to take the fight potentially versus Smooya, who's playing under heaven, if he falls back once these smokes pop down. Those are the kind of decisions that Dragonfly has to, really get across to his team, and he needs to get a good read on it. But it's really difficult to do depending on what kind of information you get back from your teammates as well, because Dragonfly can't be everywhere on the map.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, if I recall from seeing him play in Valencia, he had a good few opening games. It wasn't until they ended up reaching the playoffs there that I think Dragonfly really did start to take more of a noticeable hit, a bit of a noticeable dip in performance. I always think that's maybe one of the issues we see with a lot of these AWPing IGLs is that if the teams start to fall behind, then their potential to actually put up numbers kind of goes down with it. Especially, I feel like on a map like Nuke, where really I think, if you're looking at Dragonfly, you're looking at having that T-side AWPer, you're going to need him to be winning these fights outside versus Smooya, or taking these duels over towards ramp if they decide maybe to rotate him in there. But it is a faster play, just what we ordered. They've gone down through vents, and actually they've bested Big on the timing here. They're already down, and they're in the back line now. This B bomb site just overwhelmed with Danes. These rotations are already pulling through. Dragonfly still posted up outside here, and Torben down towards the ramp. He's going to
have to be patient, and he is. You can see a lot of players just deciding to walk through that smoke. Oh, Tizian actually gives away his position as well, and Dragonfly's the one to pick him up. So he's rotated down from the roof. This is actually pretty nice. They're keeping tabs up here. That means that there's no pressure from the ramp side. And speaking of the ramp side here, Torben, that's a nice adjustment right there. There's no way of actually knowing that Nex is there, but at that point he's done his job. He, was a part of getting that first opening on Tizian in ramp. In addition to that, keeping tabs away from actually putting any pressure on the players downstairs. So Smooya is pretty much left in a situation where he has to fend for himself versus 2 to 3 Fragsters players. And again, that was quick and nice. They were able to actually, negate or dodge most of the damage from the Molotov. The Molotov came out a little bit late for Big. I think if that goes down, a second earlier, all of a sudden you're looking at a lot of roasted Danes. But that's definitely a nice little wrench to throw into the machinery of Big.
Yeah, I mean, almost definitely, because, they were starting to amass a decent bit of money as well over on this CT side. And that could be one of the biggest issues, not really given that chance to snowball as efficiently on other maps here on Nuke. But they've certainly brought down this German economy to its knees. There's the Molotov over towards Secret. But once again, Fragsters are already down and past it. Even then, they start to throw a couple of players through, charging down here towards a B-bomb. Refresh in the meantime. He's opened up onto ramp, and you can see Smooya in the vents left to try and fight back for his life. Does have a man there to try and assist him. Godby's very wary that someone could have aggressed in through that ramp from down into under heaven. So his rotation's being held back. This bomb's still yet to go down, and Big are already knocking on the door of Fragsters. Smooya winning that fight. That there could be one of the turning points. That was Dragonfly with the AWP to fall, and now it is just Refresh and Torben left up here for Fragsters.
Refresh is a really good position here, though. Even though the vents aren't open towards the bomb site anymore, can still get around pretty easily towards both sides. And, well, one issue for them is that the bomb's been denied. Oh, that's a nice shot from Nex there. If Nex goes down in that situation, it's almost impossible for Smooya to be able to react in time. Could have very easily been a 2-player swing. So that it's Torben, though. Like, this situation would have been very doable for Fragsters if they got a bomb plant down. But Big being able to rotate just in time really just makes this a terrible situation for Torben to be in. And it was, even gets the quick switch at the wrong time. So Tabson's going to net his second kill of the round. But again, I like the tempo from Fragsters. I mean, everything they do outside of, losing out the duel, not being able to punish Smooya and Vents there is pretty according to plan. That's what you want to see out of the team. If they actually down Smooya, I think that's just round over on Big's end. And it probably leads to a pretty easy bomb plant as well. But you could tell that they're able to pull apart the defense from Big's side in many ways. I mean, Refresh opening it up simply because of the quick tempo down Secret. That makes it so that Tizian has to leave his post at ramp. That gives up his position and an easy kill for Refresh, really.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of look at this Fragsters team, you think, they're the underdog, right? So if anything, technically, they can kind of run whatever they want heading into this,
Yeah.
And versus someone like Godby, if you can just keep that man guessing, not kind of get into like a rhythm almost. You're just constantly switch. I mean, that's what we've seen these last few rounds. It's been fast plays towards A. They try taking Secret. Now, admittedly, as you say, it was nice rotations from Big, but you feel like, maybe if one, there was trying to remember. I think it was like Refresh goes down over towards events. If he'd been able to get Smooya and Nex in that position, suddenly you're into a 2-on-2. The whole round's called into question, and both those guys were tagged very low. So, maybe a few things coming down to timing there, not quite going the way of Fragsters, but I am liking they're not giving that much respect away at Big. You know, we're not seeing them play very scared Counter-Strike. It's been very, very fast, very aggressive.
I'm gonna put out a line I absolutely hate, but they're playing their own game.
Yeah,
they really are. Like they're not necessarily like
see how many of them we get thrown out about this about this performance for you.
But they're not really playing to what Big normally does, or they're not really too worried about that. They have their own tempo, they have their style, and they're gonna continue running with it. Dragonfly goes down, but they've managed to sneak one guy down the vents. Fortunately, not the bomb, as far as I could tell.
Second guy goes down, though. And I don't think they saw Stavin fall, so he's there for the time being. There are still players down on B, so you don't imagine much is going to come out of getting one man down the vents with a Glock.
Yeah, the rotations were in time and stuff. I like this. This is a cheeky play, waiting for someone to rotate from the upper bomb site down the vents. Get a cheeky knife kill, some extra money in the bank.
How dedicated is he to this? How long do we wait? Because there's 1 minute and 5 seconds left of this round.
Yeah.
Stavin's got all day. And I don't think they know this is where he is right now. You can see that bomb's over here towards B. And actually, right now, there's only Tabson nearby. So if through some sort of miracle Stavin can find him, he could look to maybe get that bomb down. He's going to go over here towards Secret first, where Smooya is.
It's only got a Glock, though. That's a bit of a worry. If he had a P250, maybe there's more of a chance of him potentially... Oh, well, say that. There's the P250. That's what he can do. If he was able to down Smooya, that could be an op he's able to save in going into the next round, something to that effect. But not going to be the case. Big equalizing the numbers 5-5. But still, I mean, at this point, you can't really be upset about how you're doing if you're Fragsters. I mean, you lost pistol. You're still at 5 rounds this early on in the half. That's at that point, things are going according to plan. Yeah, most definitely. And, I think for Big, there's going to be a little bit more pressure as well as they now look to, shortly rather, head into their T side. But we can see pause called in once again here for the Fragsters boys. Now, this time, it looks like it is a tactical, and I imagine they're going to be having a little discussion as to how they want to approach these coming rounds. Yeah. I think if you're these guys, a lot of that pressure is going to be a little alleviated thanks to that early start, the big kind of handover. 10-5 half, or a 5-10 half rather on your T side is already, pretty run-of-the-mill, rather standard here on Nuke. So yeah, I mean, the next 5 rounds, if you can get anything else out of it, then big bonus. Really is. And the question for Fragsters right now is whether or not they want to continue with the tempo they had. We haven't seen too much impact from the op right now. The question could be if Dragonfly, wants to potentially put that down, join the, the aggressive crew wherever they want to go and actually just be a part of the movement in that sense. Or if they actually want to slow things down instead of for, I guess, your more cookie-cutter trademark way of playing Nuke. Torben, again, getting into a very aggressive position here. Tabson's in a bit of a funky spot. You can see shots being fired up by Gabi as well to take attention initially, so they might not expect anything unless Torben's actually spotted him out. Yeah, getting to that spot. It's going to be an opening kill, and that's going to force some rotations. It's actually going to keep Gob outside towards Garage.
I mean, what a man to find if you are Fragsters. You go ahead and take down Tabson. Now, he's had a good time of things thus far, and he's usually the one of the 2 names we really look to within this big roster to make a difference, the other maybe being Smooya. But already Fragsters taking the man advantage. And as you say, that's meant that Gabi has to stick around here towards outside.
Yeah, here we go. Still a lot of utility on the side of Fragsters. Smooya actually finds a frag. Yeah, he's been poking aggressively around here. He's going to find the opening on Dragonfly. I'm curious if they actually blew up the door for him or if he did that himself. In any case, very good pickup. Now with the smokes going down, Torben's actually going to go down through the smoke there to Gabi. He might have been in the gap. It's definitely not what you wanted. And time's starting to tick down as well. They had a med advantage for the longest time. And, well, they've been able to do nothing with it. Now they're just running into the turret that is Smooya. Oh, and Refresh not able to win out the duel versus Next. So this went from looking pretty promising for Fragsters to becoming quite the nightmare.
Yeah, maybe you feel like that's one of the issues with one of these, like younger, less experienced rosters is, if you're Dragonfly, you're trying to IGL this team, you have the first kill go your way outside, but then it's just what to do once you have that man advantage. Yeah. You notice, the gameplay kind of slowed down. They're taking some time to think about it. Then they go ahead and lose him, just trying to push in towards radio, like taking like a very standard area of the map, not quite ready for Smooya to be holding it aggressive, and they start to throw away the lead on the back of that. So now, into this round, they've only got pistols to work with, however. They're going to maybe... we do see Torben heading outside, and he's already gotten past Smooya. I'm not entirely sure that he's aware that someone could be down secret. So maybe we see something come of this as the rest of the guys once again setting up. Over here towards A. You can see a couple of bodies on the other side of Squeaky. And
Torben's got some quick feet. He's been able to get into positions that Big haven't been expecting him in quite a few times. We'll see. He's fooling around with the door there, keeping tabseN honest. Nobody from the Big side has actually rotated down. Now they're actually going to drop the bomb, so now they don't really have any need to do so. That is a bit of a bummer. Smooth's going to find Dragonfly again. That seems to be a recurring theme.
But let's remember, Torben, sneaky little Torben's been able to get into the backline. He's down here in the vents, and he's just waiting, going to go ahead. Now that reload comes out, he charges into tabseN. Next trying to help out him with the duel. He's desperately trying to bail his team out of this one, and Torben's going to find himself another, so he's doing a good job. That nade will be enough to get rid of him. Next actually going to beat into it with the bullet, so just stabbenN left alive and in a 1v3.
Not a whole lot he can hope to do in this kind of situation. It's starting to run low. He's going to get the dink onto Tizian, but not enough to get the kill. So 3 men surviving, and Big have been doing a pretty good job of that in the last couple of rounds they've won as well, just having members stay alive. So their economy is starting to build up pretty quickly. You can see Smooya sitting at 12K, next at 11.5 as well. So they're going to have the opportunity to take a couple of hits if Fragsters actually bring this back. And again, opting to go for that off, that means less utility on the side of Fragsters, but the 4 others are fully kitted out. Not the end of the world, but we need to see some sort of impact from Dragonfly here if he wants to justify continuously going for that op. And Smooya has changed up his position this time. He's moving towards ramp. Not going to connect on the first bullet, drops a molly. It hasn't stopped the Danes before, and it won't this time either. So 1-for-1 trade, though. Significant damage taken. Actually, Gob goes out to Torben. Torben's doing work outside. He's actually pulled a pretty heavy rotation as well. You can see 2 players on the minimap here over by Garage and Tizian in secret as well. Unbeknownst to Fragsters, though, next is on a bit of an adventure into lobby. Dragonfly is finally getting a connection there. That does mean ramp is completely open for now, but we'll see how confident Fragsters feel about that. Right now, still very spread, not really committing to anything at all. As for Big, they've decided to take separate roads. tabseN playing close to door. Not a very typical position to find yourself in. I mean, but obviously with the window being removed in the newer edition of Nuke, that's it's going to work out for you at times. And Fragsters, yeah, they're just walking their way forward. It will potentially run into Tizian here downstairs, but again, they have strength in numbers. But Tizian does have the opportunity to actually get a denial of a bomb plant here, and considering how low the time is running, that could be a big issue for the Danes.
Yeah, it certainly could. He's got the molly as well, but that might not matter. He's found himself a double. That's all he had to and more. Now, 15 seconds left. These rotations coming in from tabseN. He's going to go and do damage onto Torben. That's got him off the bomb. And now with this much utility still up on Tizian, the molly goes raining in. Dragonfly desperately trying to protect Torben as that bomb goes down. Tizian pivots back on the spot. He's been the man of the hour in this round for Big. It is just Torben in a 1v2. This man, usually the brains behind the operations for Fragsters, now has to try and be the brawn as well. And he does spot out Tizian. As good as he's looked, tabseN going to go ahead and beat him to it. That will be the round locked in here for the Big boys. 8-5. And in spite of that bomb going down, money's still going to be a little bit of a problem here. They should still be able to field a buy into this next one. I think they're up to max loss bonus now. So with that bomb plant, we should be able to see it come in.
Yeah. But again, I think that's Fragsters playing too passively for their own good. I mean, they're giving time for the 2 remaining Big players to actually rotate around, get pretty decent positioning. Tizian in that spot over towards the lower bomb site doesn't actually have to commit to anything at all. He can poke back and forth all he wants without being in necessarily like big danger of actually being taken out, which is going to allow for tabseN to rotate down because he's playing close to vents. I think that tempo change there definitely could have been advisable. You really can't afford to lose that. As well as they started, they really have looked flatter and flatter as we've gone further into the half, and those are the kind of rounds that you can't afford really to lose out on if you're Fragsters.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be kicking themselves now. This would have been a pretty good half had they been able to find, I mean, a very good half on the back of it.
Is that a fish hook on the cap?
Yeah, big fan of, that's what the F in FBI stands for, is fishing.
Oh, yeah. The Fish Hook Bureau of Investigation.
Yeah, they're big into
Unknown
it. But let's
fact,
see.
yeah, not a lot of people know that.
Yeah, not many people do. Smooya's going to see if he can try and Taking over towards ramp. Actually, it's Tabson here trying to reel someone in hook, line, and sinker, but it hasn't happened. Instead, they've ducked down in through Secret here, charging in towards this B-bomb site. And rotation's already down from Smooya, so finally we get to see that man in question over here towards the ramp position. Players coming his way, and he's going to hit the window break. Now, not looking to quote Romeo too much here, but...
good utility usage so far.
They're going to be allowed to get the bomb now. This is looking like a more convincing round from Fragsters. Is 5v5 in this retake. This is certainly not an easy scenario here for Big, especially now with Refresh up in that backline, shutting down next. The remaining players all over here towards ramp, looking to try and rotate in. But they need to find something soon.
Yeah, a lot of utility on the side of Big, but it's a question of how useful it's going to be. That Molotov from Tijan could be absolutely massive. Yeah, that's going to force out Torben. Leads to an easy kill for Gob. Well, Refresh, though, he has other things in mind. He's on a bit of an adventure himself. Oh, actually gives up his position, but does eventually find Gob. So that seems to be the potential nail in the coffin. As Tabson and Tijan, they're really struggling to find any sort of ground here. And as we see Tabson getting taken down, Boops is going to follow suit and remove his teammate Tijan. 6 rounds. I mean, this could have potentially been 7 or 8 on the side of the Danes.
Yeah, there's definitely been a few rounds that have slipped through their fingers. Then you take into account as well, they didn't win that pistol. Admittedly, you know, that they're able to win the force by to try and run the story like these have all been rifle rounds would be very misleading. But and you know, they are kind of helped out massively by Big extending that 4th round onto them when we saw that partial buy come in. But you know, with their CT side coming up, a lot of that pressure is going to be removed now. And you know, Big, they might come to regret some decisions that they've made of their own into this round. It's going to be the last of the first half, and you can see that Big, they've got everything they can possibly need. Smooya with that AWP going to be underneath Heaven, assisting Tabson towards outside. Fragsters look like they want to try and hit this up early on with 4 players towards the outside position right now. One of those going to be Dragonflight. You can see him homing in his sights here. Hasn't spotted anything out just yet. Of course, the outside defender right now is Tabson down there towards Secret.
Yeah, they might try to dive through vents as well. They had a similar setup a couple of rounds ago where they eventually ended up with a bit of a vent dive and then having Dragonfly to hold up any rotations and potentially be a bit of a backstab. But, oh, he's actually going to find Tabson this time. So finally we're seeing something come out of that op on the side of Fragsters. Smooya has rotated into position already, though. Question is whether or not there's going to be smokes down here to greet him. It's very slow pace though for Fragsters, even with that opening.
Oh, eventually, it feels like we're going to get to see this duel between Dragonfly and Smooya. Will he get the read? He's going to rely there on the rest of his team to relay this across properly, and Stabbin is the first man to spot Smooya, also the man to take him down, so that will be Big Zorpa bested towards outside. Tizian, remarkably, not going to go down there. Is going to be given a second chance as he starts to back away, but it's Stabbin up here in the heavens, wrapping in towards the A-bomb site. God B should hear the footsteps, should hear the gunfire raining on him, but he's only good for 1. 2 players left alive in the form of Tizian and Nex, and it's Nex in the hut. That could make all the difference. Could look to try and deny the bomb plant, but he's going to arrive a little bit late, and Stabbin just decapitating him before he gets any say into this round. So a 7-8 half in favor of Fragsters. That is one that they cannot be too disappointed with.
No, absolutely. Getting those 2 last rounds is pretty big for them. Obviously, being able to take that adds a bit of a more of a cushion, even if we were to lose the pistol round in the second half as well. And yeah, they've done it in multiple ways as well. We didn't really get to see them get stuck into just doing the same kind of round over and over again. They actually had a lot of different variations as to how they wanted to approach every single round, which is good to see. Hopefully they can continue that going into the second round as well. But yeah, I was actually really surprised to see that. Obviously, they used a lot of utility in terms of flashing each other forward once they got onto GR, but we didn't see a whole lot of smoke usage at all. So Smooya never really was, you know, too far away from potentially just breaking that on its back. Luckily for Fragsters, still winning out their duels to net them that 7th round. And now, I'm really interested to see what happens if Fragsters win this pistol.
Yeah, I mean, that there would be them springboarded into the lead in a great spot. You look at this buy, though, from Big. Clearly, they've got something up their sleeve. 2 Molotovs.
Yeah.
And, you know, 3 flashbangs. It's very, very utility-heavy right now, which almost feels like a classic God B sort of call, but that might not matter. You've already lost Smooya. He's gone down. One of the players who did have armor into this round, falling. But my goodness, Nex is certainly feeling it on these pistol rounds. He's going to go ahead and find 2 before he's traded out. Dragonfly comes wrapping in. And, ooh, quick shot onto Gombi. Now it is just Tizian and Tabson left up. Gonna try and smoke him off, and they do actually find the frag. So Torben locked into the 1v2, does have the kit to play around with, and a flash as well to try and open up this bomb site. All this utility, that Molotov gets extinguished there by the smoke, so that's a hefty bit of this defense from Big stripped down. Now these remaining players without armor. The utility not really getting anything done. Torben is still in with a chance. He's going to get spotted, but he goes running by Tabson, and Big once again going to be finding their second pistol round here in Nuke.
Very well, like I said, recuperated from Big's side there. Again, yeah, you can see that they definitely have a plan in mind with those Molotovs and smokes that they picked up. Not usual to see so much utility on the side of a T-side pistol. And it kind of just, everything that wasn't supposed to happen does happen for Big as well, because they don't want to play against for something aggressive. They want to set up, they want to have their execute, and you know, run that as practiced. But Fragsters being extremely aggressive on their end as well just throws a wrench in it, but able to deal with it really, really well.
Well, early on in this round, you can see you have the investment here from Fragsters. They've got two scouts in place, so they're going to be watching outside. Although right now, it doesn't look like they're going to be rewarded for watching it. But I tell you what, Halvor, you know what? You can get rewarded for watching. If you go ahead and watch this over at live.starladder.com, how was that for an interjection? I think that was pretty good.
That was pretty smooth.
Down here over towards Heaven, you can see that Big putting the pressure on. Fragsters have started to rotate some players down towards B in the meantime. And this ramp room already being given up so early on to the round. Big actually throwing out a decent bit of utility to grab it, though, which is always nice. It's going to help erode down their money a little bit, looking to the future. Now pushing in towards B. There is a refresh nearby, looking to try and maybe deny this bomb plant. Right now, everything's smoked off, so Big should be allowed to get this down unchallenged. 5v5 in the retake, looking like it's something straight out of a very unbalanced retake server, but Tabson opening things up, extends the man advantage in favor of Big. This should be there, and if you're Fragsters, I think you're just looking to save here.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't able to find any sort of pickoffs as Big made the way onto the bomb site. You don't have any utility to work with. There's not really a big percentage chance of you getting anything done worthwhile here. So being able to hold on to ZZ's armor, and definitely that scout onto Dragonfly as well, that's all you want. Oh, okay, well, Torben salvages it eventually. Does get spotted out by Tizian, though. So the hopes of actually holding on to pretty significant weaponry going into that third round is not looking very good. Still, they do have a scout. But I was a bit surprised to see that double scout on a map like Nuke. Again, I mean, the desk talked about how double ops rarely come into fruition on a map like this, simply because A, it's extremely expensive to just play on that CT side, given how much utility you actually need. And also, there's not a whole lot of venues to where you can have a space for two operas. And also, the retakes becomes a nightmare. Seeing the two scouts is a bit of an interesting take. Nonetheless, though, it is, I guess, one of the throwaway rounds for Fragsters in that sense, seeing how they did lose the pistol. Quick yard take here from the German side. Smoke walls and straight down and towards Secret here with 3 players.
Yeah, Big just given this portion of the map. Fragsters hedging their bets, instead stacking players over towards ramp and now down into the B bomb site. Does at least mean that they're going to have a very, very hefty defense here inside of B, all things considered, but no armor, not really too much to work with the exception of Bubsky on that CZ, and the scout on Dragonfly means that there should still be a big round. I mean, we've seen these pistols, you know, stranger things have happened. Big setting up to go on in, and they've already spotted out Stavin up here on the rafters. He's going to get finished off by Gobby. The push continuing, and this now looks to be a pretty convincing round. Bubsky maybe throws all that into question. He's going to continue taking these fights, but it's Smooya in the back to trade out to. And now just Torben left up. Big moving into an 11th round, unless Torben can somehow do something impossible.
Well, that's not how you go about it. Tough situation to be in, obviously, only with a P2000. So Fragsters, they're still going to be sitting at 7 after the first 3 rounds of the second half. Big onto 11. But this is where the real action starts. Finally, we're going to see Fragsters being able to buy up. Again, not really, or I guess we could potentially see them actually go with the same kind of approach as we saw from Big, where they do an extra eco just to make sure that they have all the utility in the world, but that would be very surprising to me. You don't see teams being that conservative a lot of the time. And now Nate's going down. Still had Molotovs for Hut and whatnot, so They had the most essential nades in place. Again, no head armor, though. So that MP5 on the side of Smooya can actually do some significant damage.
Yeah, I'm curious if that's going to become too much of an issue for them here because, you know, clearly not anticipating them to try and hold one of these MP5s forward. Smooya.
Setting up for yard smoke. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like, unlike from what we saw with Fragsters, where there was a lot of different strategies thrown, you know, out the playbook or used from the playbook, I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw Big following more of a cookie-cutter default for the better part of their rounds. Maybe they changed up the tempo a little bit, but a lot of it's going to be focused around yard, these smoke walls and so on, to give them some sort of map control.
Yeah, I think if you're Big, you know, you definitely don't want to be throwing out any of the any because you just know Gobby's been, you know, crafting up some unreal strategies. Don't want to be throwing any of them out too soon. You got to save the gold for a little bit later, and yeah, this
Save
is
it
just
for the major.
This is the a little way away now. Maybe they could have done with him a little bit sooner. But here's the pushing towards B, as you say, reasonably standard. They're going to go running into Torben though. And he's been undetected right now. He's going to get spotted there by Smooya, so they know that there's a man in this position. Nothing there to force him out. Tizian does have a molly, but he's looking to try and hold on to that for the time being. And actually, the molly they do throw in has missed its mark. So Torben still just being a nuisance inside of this bomb site. They're trying desperately to flush him out. That doesn't matter if everyone else dies. So alternative route, I guess, was just to kill everyone apart from Torben and let him have that B bomb site for the time being. And that's exactly what they do. 12-7 right now in favor of Big here. A fantastic T-side start from this team.
Absolutely. And again, yeah, it's a really good position for Torben to be in. Again, unfortunate that he can't get the drop of the first guy actually crossing over towards the bomb site to deny bomb plant, but just get one frag. The issue is that the rest of the team is just not quick enough to rotate in time. He doesn't have any sort of sustainability in that position. He can't necessarily go deep and actually try to chase for something because none of his teammates are in a spot where they can actually help him out or potentially trade for him. That leads to a bit of a flat defense from Fragsters, and once again, we're seeing Secret being utilized heavily from Big. CZs all across the board on the side of Fragsters. Big, so far up to this point, have been okay with dealing with the anti-ecos outside of the first one we saw after winning pistol in the first half. For now, though, they're actually opting to go back from Secret here. They're going to try to wrap under Heaven, and I'm not really sure where that Molotov comes from, but that's probably not intended. Well, Tabson's going to suffer the consequences as, yeah, the noise that comes out from the Molotov when he gets tagged definitely alerts the Danes as to what's about to happen.
This is actually, you know, almost the perfect stack right now from Fragsters. Not too often do you see such a heavy emphasis over here towards Hell, but we've got 3 players stacked up. They've gone ahead and, oh my goodness, Tizian.
Tizian's onto something. He knows something's up.
He always certainly does. Oh, no, there you go. He's gone ahead and beat the system, runs around, dodges the wallbang, and finds the kill, but Nex is able to trade. There is still a rifle here. Oh, no. No, there's not. Bubsky's going to go ahead and just perish in the flames.
All right. Fortunately, not a Phoenix. Bomb has made its way downstairs here. Smooya making sure their backs are covered. Torben hoping to get lucky there. Not going to be the case. And Nex, he's got control over the long side here. Stop it. Oh, actually he was able to deny it. Look at the time. 5 seconds.
They're going to go back in. Stabbin goes running through, but no, the bomb goes down just in the nick of time for Big, in spite of Stabbin's best efforts. And Refresh now just going to look to try and hold on to the AK. That round there feels so painful for Fragsters. It's so bittersweet. You know, only 2 players surviving for Big. You only have CZs heading into it. So if you look at it in that sense, you know, getting out here with an AK as well, it all looks good on paper. But for Fragsters, you know, they had Bubsky end up just sitting in that Molotov down to his death. I think, you know, under the belief that there were players towards the outside of the hut. So he just elects to maybe overstay as well, misses the timing on just getting out of there. And you imagine if Bubsky was still alive, that round was very, very doable. It would have been a 3-on-2. Stabbin denies the bomb plant. There could have been pressure down in towards that B bomb site with the rifles collected from hut as well. So at least managed to save the AK. They make the best out of a very bad scenario there towards the end. A 13th round on the board, though, for Big. Means they're getting closer and closer to that match point. And yeah, like, he's going to get tagged out.
Yeah.
No, he didn't even realize. So
No, like, I mean, you probably realize that, and it looks kind of silly when you watch the replay, but he's probably expecting some sort of aggression off the back of that. They already committed one player towards heaven. Like that gives you the indication that, okay, they want to take control of this. Maybe they're trying to wrap, the upper bomb site. So he wants to sit in that fire for as long as possible to just see if Next tries to poke in. If he does, then he can actually get the drop on in. And if you get a one-for-one trade in that scenario as a CT, you take that any day of the week. So even though it won't allow you to actually pick up any weapons or move forward with that in that sense, you've already established your positioning on the other players of the team to actually win out the round from that point on. So it's a bit of a 50-50 call. Some probably could have opted to actually run forward and try to meet whoever's coming in as the aggressor under heaven there, just face to face, but doesn't quite pan out. We'll see though. Weapons in the hands of Fragsters, and they need to start getting rounds on the board. They had a pretty successful T side on their end, but it's looking like Big are going to be able to replicate that rather quickly, unless we see a bit of a stop here. Smooth, yeah. It's going to open the door. Nobody actually rotating in towards main. Is Bubsky? Bubsky surely isn't the sole defender on that upper bomb side, is he? Love me a nuke radar.
yeah, it certainly looks like it right now. I believe he is. There was a man up towards heaven in the form of Dragonfly, but it looks like
he's moving up there now. He's getting buddies.
this double orb setup though from Fragsters. That's going to be the interesting thing in this round. Refresh donning the other one. It's a very, very heavy investment, though, from the Danes. You take a look at those bank accounts, however, and things look a little bit worrying. If Big pick this round up, you're up 14-7. You reset the Fragsters economy, very, very quickly able to go ahead and get yourself to match point on the back of it. And I mean, then if you're Fragsters, you're also in that scenario where you're kind of facing, do we take the eco, try and win 8 rounds in a row at 15-8 with one last buy, or do we just try and force buy for the final 2?
It's it's a tough predicament to be in. And again, we're going to see Big make their way down Secret. It took them a little bit longer to get down there this time around, but well, they do it at their own tempo and refresh. Post it up with that secondary op. That's also a bomb. Doesn't decide to stay aggressive, though, in order to keep track of that, but it's a nice little tell. So she's going to drop the Molotov, and on the other side of the map, the Dragonfly is rotated off to a ramp. He's going to find Tizian as well, so that's the potential lurk for Big. Just delete it, and well, Smooya hits the wall. Dragonfly does not. Well, actually does, but gets full damage through it. And, well, convincing victory from Fragsters.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? These days, they have a few rounds where they just seem to fall completely flat. And then randomly you get one like that where the stars align, everything seems to be going right, everyone's playing well off of each other. And obviously, greatly helped as well with the double ops actually having a pretty decent effect. It was refresh to open up and drop the bomb down towards Secret.
Yeah.
So right now, at least, it seems to be working. Keeping that round so convincing as well is quite good for Fragsters, because you see now they've kind of slightly started to crawl out of the economic hole they were in. They're not going to be as badly affected by the loss. That gives you a little bit more in the way of resilience versus this Big T side. Big, meanwhile, they've got the buy in this round. Plenty of cash even heading into the next as well. Full utility as they set up outside of this A-bomb site, and Stavin looks to be the first point of contact here. Now the Incendiaries, the nades rain on in, force that man in the form of Bubsky off from the silo.
It seems like, yeah, Big are just wanting to more or less bait out utility from the side of Fragsters here. A Molotov on top of the inner silos. I mean, they got what they wanted, but probably not as many nades as they would have liked to see. Stavin doesn't have a Molotov anymore, though. Doesn't have a smoke either, so it's going to be tough for him to hold back any sort of attack here. Right now. There we go. Door opens. Oh, that's a neat little flash from Big right there. Still not going to amount to anything at all as Stavin finds 2. Gob does get in there with the response, and they're going to drop down vents here. We do have the bomb on the back of Gobby as well, and no real rotation in time here for Fragsters.
Dragonfly is the only man nearby. He's down towards Secret. Rotations over here at the ramp, but Tizian, he might go unchecked. He's the thorn in their side, but no, he might end up being a little bit more of a rose here as he gets dropped. The refresh able to find him, who has been looking very, very good on this secondary AWP. Gobby and Tabson left up. These two brothers in arms going to end up falling. Actually, it's Gobby to go down, and Tabson a 1v4 required, but he's already found himself 2. Still, more players coming his way, and Dragonfly is able to go ahead and win that fight. The defuse Going to come on in for Fragsters. They lock themselves in a 9th round.
Does get a little bit more hairy than what I would have expected. Again, very heads up from Refresh there to expect Tijian. I guess they've noted a bit of a trend that Tijian does hang out around ramp, is rarely actually a part of the team. So they do see that lurk coming in. But if he doesn't do that, if he just gets the wrong timing, that probably goes the way of Big, because they got solid after plant positions. They were allowed to get a bomb plant down without any pressure. And as you can see, Tabson's the kind of player who can turn those situations on its head just immediately. So playing a bit with fire, but as you mentioned, that economic hole that we saw Fragsters find themselves in, they're slowly starting to dig their way out of it. Obviously, losing 3 players in that previous one is going to hurt a little bit, but Stabbin from that previous round had $5,000 to spare. It's not going to be the end of the world. Big, though. I mean, we talked about them having a pretty significant bank. They still do have enough money to buy up, but that's going to run out eventually if Fragsters keep this up. It'll be interesting to see how close they can get before Big potentially muster around together. Actually, yeah, okay. Big just very late to buying, actually. Plenty of money on their side as well. And the interpush didn't work, so maybe, you know, if this is gotta be after all, wouldn't be too surprised if we see them actually go back towards, you know, similar setup, smoke walls, and work from there. Question is what kind of adaptation Tijian is going to make at this point, because he's been shut down on this lurk 2 times in a row. Seems like Fragsters are very well aware of what's going on.
Yeah, most definitely. You feel like, you know, Big were feeling very, very confident about this T side right now. They certainly looked it early on, but now, you know, a few things not going their way. Yeah, are going to have to try and change something. Now, God B, you imagine, you know, he's someone who likes to try and exploit maybe any issue he can find, very prolific, and it's going to be Refresh and Dragonfly on this double AWP setup. I imagine that's something that maybe they're going to look to try and abuse just a little bit. As it's not the most common thing here to see on nuke. You can see Big, they haven't opted to pick up the AWP on Smooya at all thus far on this T side.
Opting to go for more utility instead. Can get on board with that kind of a decision. And I mean, opting on that T side, we saw Dragonfly having a pretty tough time of it. And again, outside we go. Tabson to lead the charge. Gonna line up a smoke as well. Bit of a different take on the smoke wall this time around. Bit deeper. More fuller actually as well. No gaps this time around, so very tough for anyone to actually spot through it. And Tabson's actually just gonna walk in towards main.
I was going to say, this is one of the things I like about that smoke wall. It gives you the option to wrap close in through main and in towards the A bomb site, but it doesn't matter. Tabson doesn't even play into this round. It's Tizian and God B to find so many kills between them, and Refresh in the blink of an eye left it a 1v4. There should be absolutely no way back into this for him. So Big instantly, you know, they go ahead and take a bit of a timeout. They take some time to think. They're straight back in with a 14th round. And the other kind of maybe worrying thing now for Fragsters is they didn't actually spot the way that Big throw that outside take in. They didn't see the effect of Tabson pushing in through their own smokes outside. So that now kind of is still a trick up Big's sleeve for a little bit later on. Refresh holding onto the AWP here means that they can get a buy into this next round over on the side of Fragsters. Certainly not going to have all the bells and whistles. They won't be able to move back into that double AWP setup, I don't think, unless they go ahead and take a bit of a hit somewhere else.
And very cool to see from Big, though. And again, as you said, the difference in the smoke wall that's being put down there does allow them to have that quick rotation in towards the main. Still somewhat undercover as well. The only time that kind of a attempt really fails is if somebody's playing deep in the corner of main. Otherwise, it's really tough to deal with as a CT. The guy who's playing out in yard has very little impact unless he's playing aggressively from stairs. I'm going to see a tactical pause coming from Fragsters here. They need to make a decision whether or not they want to force into this. They did manage to hold on to an op onto Refresh. He could drop a FAMAS potentially, or UMPs. But I think it might be a little bit much allowing Big to get to match point here. I think you actually, as bit of a pill it has to be to swallow, you might have to go for the force buy in this kind of scenario.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think definitely so over on the side of Fragsters. You know, they haven't really looked terribly convincing in the rounds they've been able to get. I think, you know, you're going to be looking just to try and steal one with something a little bit more, you know, you don't have the liberty now to take any sort of more conservative approach. You know, that is well and truly out the window. You need every round you can. And this buy from them isn't all too bad. You know, you've got Dragonfly up on the AWP. You're a little bit limited in terms of what you have up over on Torben. He's taking the UMP so he can get the extra utility here. But all in all, it's not a terrible buy. And you can see how they're a little bit haunted by the outside plays that Big have been throwing in, how easily they've been given this control over. We have 3 players here now. Bubsky or Stabbin rather, over towards main, and then the AWP on Dragonfly here, along with Refresh over at the warehouse. God B going to get tagged in that molly. He's been brought down very, very low, so trying to handicap himself a bit perhaps before... trying to extend a bit of a handicap the way of Fragsters.
I mean, setting yourself on fire probably does lead to a handicap or two. But yeah, I mean, they do get the control over yard. Maybe they're hoping for Fragsters to try to regain control over this area, but they haven't really been too eager on it. And I mean, in a lot of these scenarios as well, when they first start losing members, everything collapses on the side of Fragsters. It's not like a slow death. Everything is just pretty immediate. So there's no real tell for how they actually handle those kind of situations. That's going to be Bubsky to see the first kind of action. He's not going to win out the duel versus Tijin. Refresh, though, finds the trade. Stabbin actually follows that up as well. Oh, Dragonfly, you don't want to be there. Gabi tested that a little bit earlier in the round.
That would have been such a big kill for Torben to find, but instead you have Refresh chiming in, finally dealing with God B. Tabson brought down to 3 HP. Holds over here by the vent. That nade not quite enough to finish him, and actually it's the molly it spread. So now next, 1v2 for match point here for Big, and if he wins this, he completely destroys the economy of Fragsters. So there is a lot on this one round, and Dragonfly already tagged down low, finally getting it finished off. He starts to burn in the fire and flames, but Refresh still picking up the kill. The defuse comes in. Fragsters move on to a 10th, but only one man surviving. So their economic problems over on this CT side are just starting to begin.
Yeah, no, they're not digging themselves out of any sort of hole anytime soon, but they do manage to get a win on the board, and that was pretty much well, that's always the main goal. But they do manage to stave off the pressure from Big here. We can see, yeah, the loot bet odds are dwindling in favor of Fragsters, not exactly going the way you want them to. But I guess, you know, if you really want to, you know, win a house off of 5 cents, go for Fragsters at this point. We'll see what they can muster. They've got the Alligator out on Bubsky. So he's going to be playing close up towards that inner bomb side. Refresh is in a really forward position here. This is similar to what we saw from Tabson as well. Neat little boost there. So he's going to get forward position. All this scoping is definitely going to alert, yeah, Refresh to what's going on. And he might pounce here in a matter of seconds. And if Gabi's not paying attention, this could be a double kill. Yeah, there connects with Stabbin as well. It's solidly done by the Danes. And a pretty significant amount of firepower gone from Big as well. Tijin probably had the most inactive role on a T side I've seen in quite some time. Just kind of hanging around in radio, not really applying himself too much when Big set up to get map control. Now he has to finally join the fray, though. Tabson's going to drop down.
I'm liking this adjustment from Fragsters. They just pull back. They're going to give up outside. And they found the two-man advantage. They give the bomb back to Big. That's the sacrifice that they're prepared to make. And now they just hunker down in these bomb sites. Wherever Big do decide to go,
it's going to be man advantage for Fragsters. And I think that's the right call to make as well. You don't want to play with fire in that sense. Just play it safe as possible. They don't have anyone downstairs right now. As of right now, the closest thing they have is Torben towards ramp to rotate in. I mean, they do have guys like Stabbin towards the vent area, but yeah, it can lead to nothing. I mean, Big posturing for the longest of time running down and not finding anything, just having Smooya and Gob go down towards Refresh out in yard it's going to be all they have to offer.
Yeah, this is a 10th round now for Fragsters. They're going to go to reach double digits themselves. Looking over at Big's economy, the buy coming in here, but they don't really have anything to work with. You know, you're going to have the three weapons that were carried forward, the AWP, the 2 AKs. The rest of the guys are going to be on CZs and armor. A little bit limited as well in terms of the utility as a result of, you know, not getting any of that loss bonus. You threw a lot of it out, so they're just going to have to try and cobble together whatever they can in this round. It's a good chance that Fragsters find themselves in 11th, unless we see an absolutely phenomenal effort across the board from these from the big boys. And then on the back of that, you know, you imagine the money's going to be gone if Big lose this round. There's a very real way back into this for Fragsters.
Oh, we can see some dropping around happening. So Smooya does get an AWP in his hands. But as you mentioned, utility is not going to be perfect by any means. Gob has opted to go for CZ so he can actually supply his team with some help. Well, definitely a situation that favors Fragsters. Smooya missing out barely Watch a Dragonfly there as well. Refresh is nearby. And right now, I mean, you would have to assume if you're Fragsters that you've kept good enough toll on the economy of... Oh, that's a nice find from Refresh. A good enough toll on the economy of Big to know that they're not going to have too much to work with off. Obviously, they have the op that's been announced already, even though it's not on Smooya anymore. And you know Tizian has 1 AK, but you should be aware that there's not too much more for them to offer, at least not in the utility side of things, considering the weaponry. So they could fall back, they could play passively. Again, I think at this point, you can be perfectly fine having Torben towards ramp, one guy sitting around towards the long halls downstairs and playing 2 people from upper, and that should be enough to at least get you pretty favorable trades. But look at this. Stavin is feeling, well, very brave. And he's going to find Tabson as well. So no setup for the upper execute for Big here. That's a massive bump in the road for them. Bubsky's in a forward position as well. Let's see what Big can actually do here.
Well, Bubsky going to open things up. Next does answer back. Now, push coming in. There's 15 seconds. Fragsters trying to dwindle down that clock and make Big feel uncomfortable.
Bob's gone downstairs though. Gob with an uncharacteristic op in his hands. Got to get the bomb down. And at the same time, Next does find Dragonfly. He's also been able to get out of that upper bomb site. And, well, this is looking so promising for Fragsters. But within the span of seconds, the Germans turned it around.
That is just devastating if you're the Danes in this scenario. They have the man advantage. They have everything going their way. All the utility in the world. You just have to kill Nex and God B. And they go ahead and fall short. Largely all on the back of the heroics there from Nex. God B does a fantastic job of getting the bomb down and staying alive inside of that B bomb site, right? He wins out one of those fights. It goes down. But Nex just so key in that whole thing, especially because that was looking like, you know, Big were doubly done for in the push from Stavin. He goes all the way through outside. He catches Tabson. Now, Tabson was the only man who had any utility left. He had a flash and a Molotov. He was actually lining that up to rain in towards the A bomb site. So the second you see him go down, I'm of the belief that that's it. This is the Fragsters round. Oh, yeah. They're going to go out and find themselves another. The comeback is well and truly on. And Next, you know, what a performance he's been having. Top of the board right now for Big. He's going to dig deep. Despite being tagged down at, you know, crazy low HP, he's still able to win that out. And now Big sit at match point here on nuke. Pretty terrifying spot for Fragsters. They've done well to get it to this point now. But, you know, on the back of that previous round, when you see this buy, you can look on the bottom right of your screen. It's not fantastic. You still have the AWP in play. Not that I've really seen all too much to warrant bringing it out over the utility here, but...
Yeah. I think that's the key here as well. Like, how many Molotovs do you have to work with here? You have 1. And yes, obviously, like a lot of the utility, especially Molotovs on a map like Nuke, it's used early on to prevent any sort of upper rushes, and Big haven't been the team to kind of pick up the pace in that sense. They haven't attempted a single quick upper rush to this point, so you're thinking, well, that's not too big of a deal. But going into the retakes, or in a scenario where you know that Big are forced to execute with time running down on the clock for so long, or just denying bomb plants, that comes in like massively into play. But Fragsters doesn't have any of those luxuries to play with here.
Yeah, they're going to have to try and get it done on the back of, well, mostly finding these picks. And that's something they haven't been too fantastic at either. Torben over here towards the ramp. Looks like, I was going to say he might get tested, but now they're kind of gearing up for what looks like an outside play as well. As these smokes now get thrown on in, it's going to be Tabson pushing towards this portion of the map. Tizian keeping an eye on ramp, although he's more been lurking, so maybe indicative of the fact that they're going to head over here towards the A-bomb. So I can never say that word, so maybe I'll stay away from it. Smooya, he's going to be the first frag found here over on the side of Big. He does pick things up. It's Stavin to fall. He immediately trades for God B, and now they execute down this ramp. Torben, he's been looking good thus far for Fragsters. He has Dragonfly here, and this AWP, this very, very costly investment that they threw into this round, it has to try and show its worth now. Torben and Dragonfly finding the kills between them now leaves Tabson in a 1v4. Fragsters poised to pick themselves up at 12th, but Tabson, tricky Tabson, has worked himself into the backline, and he has at least found one, but 10 seconds left. Yeah, this round's done. Fragsters going to be picking up another. They do manage to stay alive for the time being.
Yeah, 5 seconds left. He's going to hold on to that. Not going to be able to salvage an AWP, unfortunately for him, but finally, we actually saw like a decent enough rotation coming in from Fragsters. Torben wasn't left to his own devices down by ramp. He had Dragonfly coming in from Toxic side. Actually able to find 2 frags, but more importantly, finding that first pressure point on Torben so he can easily focus on the sole player that's coming above the rafters of him. And that's what we needed to see earlier as well. Whenever we've seen Big pretty much try to stretch the defense, they haven't been able to stretch the defense because nobody from Fragsters are moving. But that also leaves you with almost no defense where Big actually end up. So it feels like it's kind of a gambling approach from Fragster's side. They're not really able to read the T-side play of Big too well. But this time they do it right and rewards them with a round. And 12 rounds so far, I mean, it's still better than what I would have imagined going into this game, considering they started on the T side. But, I mean, they're probably looking to do even better. See, though, talking things through. Both teams have been pretty adamant about using their tactical timeouts in this matchup.
Yeah, I think if anything, that maybe speaks bigger volumes for Big right now. You're coming into this, I think there was no doubt that they were pretty heavy favorites on paper.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, they've looked really anything but comfortable. I mean, you think about, you know, they've had comfortable rounds, definitely, but the scoreline right now should be enough to suggest to you that this hasn't been the most one-sided affair. Now, this time, they've gone for the investment in this round behind the AK on Tabson, and actually, Smoothie has been very, very quick, hot on his feet, been able to get down into the vents, so they've got to now worry about that lone Brit in the back line. Refresh is down here holding off B, but it's Torben at ramp who's about to get tested. He immediately gives it up, doesn't want to contest versus the very, very weak buy over on the side of Big. Doesn't want to risk handing over a rifle, but it's Smoothie. Gonna say maybe might find something there, but thankfully Refresh bails them out. So this round looking like it's all said and done. Tabson left in a 1v5, and as good as he's been, this is still asking a lot of this man.
Yeah, it really is. And again, we're seeing early rotations coming in from Fragsters there. They're set to go. I mean, think Bubski's. I'm pretty sure Bubski's actually spotted Samuya on that second take as he's up in heaven there, because Samuya didn't get directly down into the vents. Kind of fumbled around inside the smoke. And that allows for Refresh to get into a position. That means that Torben doesn't have to give up ramp control. And he also plays that very smartly. Again, you see the first point of contact, bail out, throw a flash, and get into a proper position. You can play that together with your teammate as well downstairs. So solid approaches from Fragsters towards the later stages of the second half.
Yeah, now there's a very, very real opportunity for overtime here over on the side of Fragsters. This 14th round is one that should just be handed over to them almost for free. You got 2 PT-50s invested, a flashbang on Tabson. Likely just going to try a fast, you know, play in towards the A bomb site with Tabson lining up that flash.
Oh, what?
He didn't even mean to kill Godby, but you know what? Never mind. Dragonfly will take that all day long. You know, it looked like it was going to be a swing and a miss, but
I thought there was a bug in the game for a second. I was like, he definitely didn't kill the guy he shot at.
Godby, just a real bullet magnet. That's the one downside to having such a big brain. You're that much of an easier target to hit. And in this round, everyone going to go ahead and stay alive. For Fragsters, that means they get all the utility they want into this next round. As the last round of regulation coming up, 14-15. This has the potential to head on through to overtime here. Yeah,
it's a question of how comfortable Big feels about that. I mean, we saw more different approaches on the T side from Fragsters in terms of what kind of setups they had for each strategy they wanted to execute, how they gained map control, what points of the map they gained map control. I hope this is the Dragonfly one. Yeah. It's like, no. Yeah, it's like he does a double take. He's like, wait, what? The guy who shot it is still alive, but, you know, they'll take that. This time, Dragonfly is going to try his luck once more. Instead, it's going to be Refresh to actually open things up. He's going to find Tabson. Second, or actually the biggest hitter together with Nex on the side of Big, but much quicker tempo this time around on the German side. Oh, Refresh, calm as ever, doesn't step out either, and that's going to be Smoothie down. So 2-man advantage here for Fragsters. We see them play this pretty well. Last time they found themselves 2 men up, not taking any unnecessary risks, and Torben's already placed in a really good spot. I really hope he has someone down there with him, but I can't actually tell. This is where you really need to have a second man down. There's no reason to have 4 people over towards that upper side of the bomb site. Oh, Torben.
He's dropped the bomb. Godby does answer back. Big, just Tizian and Godby left up. Now, we saw a round similar to this in which Big were able to pull it back, but surely this time Fragsters do not let them. At match point for Big, overtime point for Fragsters. They found both the kills, and Fragsters, they're going to be carrying this one through to overtime. 15-15, all tied up here. As we look to go the distance, it is going to be a pretty gut-wrenching situation now for this Big side, as this is really not a game that I think anyone would have read into this much. This is not a game I don't think anyone would have pegged as heading on through to OT. You know, in the beginning, we spoke about it. We stated a few reasons why this could be a hard game for Big and why Fragsters have the potential to do well. But at the same time, it feels like they shouldn't be, really. But Alas, they are. And I tell you what, it's definitely been an improvement over on the side of Fragsters. In the beginning, things looked a little bit shaky. They weren't playing off of each other very well. It felt like it would just be down to a couple of individual plays here and there where they do find rounds. And really, towards the end of this CT side half, they've looked great. Their rotations have been better. They've been playing off of each other. Just the decision-making, the Counter-Strike has just looked so much better here for the Danes.
Oh, it really has. And yeah, again, the point you make about rotations, you could see it as well. Like for a second there, we think that Torben might be left alone simply because that has been something to happen in the past as well. But after, at the same time as you see him finding that first player from Big actually moving down, you can tell that he has a teammate standing on the long corner of side halls, and that's really what we saw. Like whenever Fragsters started picking up CT rounds, it was off the back of more well thought through rotations on their end.
Yeah, which, for Fragsters, they're playing in the same region as the Starladder. I think they're the team that have the most perfect, setups when it comes to the gunfights that they take. So you certainly have a real hero to look up to locally if you are Fragsters. Maybe starting to channel some of that here in overtime on Nuke. It's MR3, and that means the magic number we're going to be looking for is 19 rounds.
tabseN again, dropping that from ladder, taking 30 points of damage. It's not really what you need. Again, we talked about this, creating a handicap for yourself is not what you want at this stage of the game. Right now, though, upper execute coming in here. No flash to actually deal with Bubsky, and he's only going to find one, but Refresh is there. Again, nice trade game going on for Fragsters. Smooya misses the opportunity as well to punish. Oh, wow. Bomb's still on the back of Smooya, but not a whole lot of venues leading to any sort of bomb sites for them right now.
Yeah, they've got 30 seconds. One thing to note, though, God B went on a very, very lengthy flank all the way through that B bomb site, and now they look to try and reap the rewards of exactly that. There's 20 seconds left on this clock, and Smooya and God B, an unlikely allegiance, going to start to push in towards this B bomb site. Torben just going to miss God B, as actually he's going to be allowed to slip in towards this bomb site. Doesn't, however, miss Smooya, and Refresh barreling on in. Just catches him after the bomb goes down. Doesn't matter, though. We're in overtime, so Economy doesn't play into it as much, especially not on that T side. A 16th round for Fragsters here. They're going to be winning the first round of overtime.
And again, the team play is coming together on the CT side. That's something we didn't see for the better part of the first 5-6 rounds.
Yeah, they're looking like a different team almost, especially on, you look up towards A in that round. Bubsky was the man to open up. I believe he was up towards no, not Heaven. Sorry, he was on
what
the
we call
rafters.
Robin.
Yeah. And he shoots on, finds the first kill, instantly traded. But you already have two players in position. Is someone rotating back in through main, has that crossfire set up inside of the bomb site, and that was the sort of stuff we just didn't see early on from Fragsters. It felt like every single duel was a 1vX for whoever was playing inside of the bomb site. Definitely
so. And, well, ever since Fragsters got their rotations in place and started trading for each other, Big have really struggled to find some rounds. I think this is, 5 out of the 6 rounds have gone the route of Fragsters right now. Maybe that playbook of Big, we talked about maybe they have some secrets shuffled away. They need to bring those out right now. And Gob, he's going to take a significant amount of damage here as he tries to walk down Secret. That does alert everyone else on the side of Fragsters that something is abound. Torben's already downstairs. Solid positioning as well. Molotov will force him out. Nice counter Molotov there to prevent any sort of forward movement from Big. Stabbed. Made his way through vents after initially doing some tag damage upstairs. Oh, gets trapped into a bit of a corner. It's a rough position. Needed Torben actually to play more aggressively and far forward there. Right now, Refresh is actually giving up on this lower bomb site.
Yeah, Fragsters is looking a little confused right now, but that doesn't matter as Torben finds himself a double. Nex is over here, causing a bit of a ruckus, but they still have to try and contend with Torben, who's just laying down the pain inside of this B bomb site. Big, this was looking like a fantastic round for them, but not as Torben tears them apart. He's on 4 kills, he's on for the ace, and oh my goodness, what a performance it's been from him. Tizian left in a 1v3, and Torben's going to do it. An ace here to pick up the 17th round for Fragsters. Let me tell you, coming into this, we made out like Big held all the cards, but Fragsters, and mainly Torben, he's called God B's bluff, and they're now in the lead in a pretty big way here in overtime, potentially about to go flawless here on their CT half. Now, I don't know about you, but the odds at one point were like, what, 1.01 to...
Yeah,
and you made the joke about, putting 5 cents on Fragsters.
Well,
I mean, I bet you wish you had.
I was about to say.
Hit at the cheeky halftime, throwing a bet on. That's Those were the loot bet odds. But yeah, I mean, thus far, Fragsters have looked fantastic.
Yeah, that looked worried. That looked a little bit scary for a period of time there. We saw Refresh trying to, or wanting to rotate off from that lower bomb site, going up towards ramp again. Luckily, they decided to think twice about it. Seemingly, they probably wouldn't have had to have him there at all, considering what Torben did. But, you know, you want to play it as safe as possible if you're Fragsters, and you just need one more round to have a perfect first OT half. And again, we're seeing that smoke wall. The difference in the smoke wall this time, though, will they actually be suspecting, and will actually tabseN follow through on the main push? This time, though, they're actually just going to go the tried and true way down secret, not making any noise either. So Refresh doesn't really have anything to go off of.
Even then, though, I mean, you know, putting Refresh there, that's such an adjustment to how they know, how they've learned that Big have been playing this outside position. They had the crossfire set up in case they tried to go through that smoke in a similar fashion as we've seen in towards main.
Yeah.
Of course, they haven't. They've dipped down here towards a B bomb site. They hear the footsteps, and Stavn, first man to arrive, hasn't been able to find anything just yet, but keep your eye on Refresh on this flank round. As he now starts to push in through Secret, Torben holding off the ramp. He's been a real nuisance for this big side, but it's Tizian to behead him and finally topple the beast. There is Torben. Man advantage gained here for Big as that bomb's ticking down, and now it's Fragsters on the clock. This looks like it should be a big round all day long, but Bubsky, the man to open, he's going to thrust Fragsters back into this round and back into a winnable scenario. Dragonfly chiming in with the Deeg as well, and now things turned around here in the server. God B trying desperately to hold his own and dig deep, and he might do exactly that as he's found a quick double. They are on the bomb. They're going to be sticking it, but Nex mows them both down. He saves that round, and Big, they find a 16th at the very end. So a 17, a 16 half. Let's not forget, we're looking for the magic number of 19. But Fragsters still heading into the second half of overtime here with that one-round advantage.
Yeah, definitely something to work with there. And again, as you mentioned, you know, at the start of the first OT, money's not a factor here. It's not going to be an issue for them at all on the T side, so they can have all the opportunity in the world to actually do something with this. Well, we did see a ton of different approaches from them in the first half at the first go of things. So curious to see how much more they have to play off of, or if they're going to revisit some old rounds.
And look on your screen there. Look at how much God B's trying to pump these guys up, you know, trying to get them into it. Because I think, you know, he knows this isn't a game that should have gone through to overtime to begin with.
Yeah,
so he's now desperately trying to get the rest of the boys to believe in back in the comeback here, get them believing that Fragsters are a team they can beat. Fragsters, you've got to realize, probably feeling a little bit nervous here at the same time that they're the underdogs, right? We're heading on through to overtime, and they could, you know, they're going to start to feel confident in that sense. But you feel like maybe if problems start to appear now on the T side, that's when you're going to notice them the most. Here in overtime, that's when that experience, that resilience, you need to start to draw on all of that, and Big are going to have that in abundance. Meanwhile, looking over at Fragsters, it can already feel like you're running into a brick wall a bit on the T side if things don't work out. So it's going to be a real test here to see, you know, how much Torben can get this squad pumped up, see what he can come up with.
You can see the difference in utility usage as well here. Like Smoothie immediately drops a Molotov out towards Yard because Fragsters have had such a high tempo for the better part of their T side. So getting rid of utility early on, and Refresh is actually going to find God B through Squeaky there. It's a big we didn't really see Fragsters actually being able to utilize getting a man advantage early on too well in the first half, but maybe they've learned some lessons. Bubsky this time is their man outside. Savin, oh, Tizian actually just kind of unprovokedly decides to push, and everyone from Big decides to push for some reason. Like, I can't make sense of this.
Yeah, they've tried to take the fight to Fragsters. Now, Nex, he saved them in the previous round. He's going to have to do it again here. He's on for the ace if he wants to pick this round up. But a 1v2, 31 HP to his name. And right now, as we can see, Bubsky still up here towards the A bomb site, keeping him trapped in. He's going to take up position in vents. And as Nex, you know, as the penny drops, he realizes that bomb's down over here towards the B bomb site. This is going to be such a tall order. Time working against him, and that's it. He's already conceded this. He's gone ahead and picked up the AWP. It's looking like it's going to be an 18th round the way of Fragsters. Makes sense for him to take the peek on in, see what he can do. Maybe they let him back into this round, but now that he's been brought down to 4 HP.
You bail.
Yeah, that's it. The round's all said and done. Match point, though, in favor of the Danes, in favor of Fragsters. This unproven Danish roster versus a team that just made legends at the major.
Yeah.
So this is certainly not the scoreline we would have expected for mine and yours first game of the day.
Yeah, no, very curious to see actually what kind of decision-making that was, or what thought process there was behind the decision-making. Look at that. The loop bit odds is really turned on its head right now. Dear Lord. But yeah, just really struggling to figure out what what the decision making behind Big was right there. Like, sure enough, yeah, you go down one man, you lose got B, but you haven't really felt any presence, most parts of the map. No real reason for Tishin to push aggressively on ramp there. And wow, the tempo of these Danes. Two people straight down into vets.
Yeah, they've beat the utility once again. They've gotten on down. A Dragonfly now going to best Smooya outside as he wins the clash of the AWPers there. Man advantage games for Fragsters. They're well and truly on to close this map out here in overtime. Torben's gone wrapping around him and Bubsky. They're going to go and pick up both the defenders down here towards ramp. And now it's God B. And next, 2 versus 5. This seeming almost like an impossible round here from Big. They have to try and do the impossible if they want to stay alive in this game. Fragsters, 2 kills is all that separates them from besting Big here in their first game of the day. And Dragonfly wrapping around. He's going to go ahead and topple next. It's got B, the IGL, the man at the helm of Big, and he's going to go ahead and get shut down. Fragsters picking up this match. And oh my goodness, what an upset that is.
That really is. And it's not an easy map to do it on as well. They didn't get the benefit of starting on the CT side. They didn't have necessarily any, traits going for them in their favor outside of just playing pretty solidly. I mean, we saw during the T side, they had a lot of ideas of how they wanted to run things. We talked about how there were a couple of rounds that kind of escaped them as well. And once they got their CT side rolling, once they actually got, to the point where they were rotating properly, they were actually being able to trade, significantly in their favor, Big really fell flat.
Yeah, they almost certainly do. This isn't best of 3 anymore. This is best of 1. Yeah. So it's a much more cutthroat system, right? These little upset games like this mean that much more. So now, for Big, they're going to be feeling a little bit worried. And a great start for Fragsters here. What a fantastic debut for them to make at the start. I mean, they can't be too disappointed with that. Things just go in their way. I mean, Dragonfly, I think, was someone for me who initially I really wasn't that impressed. It felt like I would have rather had Refresh on the AWP over him. He was definitely having a better time of it. Towards the end, though, picks up his game, starts to do a bit better. The real star, though, has to be Torben. What a fantastic game from him. There was that round where he gets the ace. He's always the guy, picking up the multi-kills, getting the trades, and then he's also the one leading the squad. So he's really got quite the impressive resume on the back of that one game.
Yeah, definitely. So did a really good job of actually being able to maintain that lower part of the bomb. Even, again, if you're stuck in a situation where nobody rotates for you and you're playing the lower bomb site, you're not giving it much of a chance, right? But he did a pretty significant job of actually staying alive in the situations where they started making their rotations, buying enough time for the rest of the teams to actually be active and a part of either, preventing a bomb plant from happening or actually, successfully, completing a retake. All those kind of things matter. And just all across the board, I don't think you can say that anyone from Fragsters really disappointed in it or went missing in any sense. I mean, you haven't mentioned Stabin as well. He had a really good job. Bubsky got into it towards the later stages of the game as well. So just across the board, really solid performance.
Yeah, well, you and I, we can talk about this all day long, but I would love to hear what the players have to say. We're going to go ahead and give this one over to an interview with the boys from Fragsters.
Yes, I am with one of the upsetters. It's Refresh from Fragsters. Your biggest event so far, and my word, you started it with a bang. Well, not quite taking out, but certainly defeating one of the favorites here. That's got to feel good, Refresh.
Yeah, it feels great. I mean, of course, Big is a good team. They have done good things at the major, and they are really good. So we're really happy to beat them.
But how do you prepare for a match like this? Because I have to say, in some ways, you've got an advantage, right? There aren't many demos of you out there, but you have plenty of material to watch. So is that what you were doing?
To be honest, no, we didn't focus so much on their play. We just tried to be confident in our own game and focus on ourselves instead of keep worrying about the enemy team. So we just tried to do what we did in practice, and it worked out.
What do you think is your secret weapon?
Our secret weapon, I think it is our firepower. People usually underestimate us, and I mean, it's gonna be a big mistake.
But here's the thing, though. They've seen you now. They've seen you beat Big. Do you think, then, that people are going to be a bit more prepared to face you in your next couple of matchups?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't really think that it's going to make a difference. We are still going to do our own game and play as underdogs as we did today.
Who do you really want to beat?
Personally, I really want to beat North. We have met them twice on land, and we have never won a map. So it's that is a personal goal for me, at least.
Well, there you go, North. Cadian in particular, Refresh. is coming for you. Now, coming up next, we have Vegas Squadron, and they'll be facing off against NRG. We want to know what you guys think. So, as always, Twitch, you can have your say. All the voting information is on screen for you right now, but let's head back to the desk.
Thank you, Frankie. Yes, Fragsters do manage to take down Big, going all the way to overtime. It may have been a slow start for them, but they closed it out in the end. But are we now, guys, pointing the fingers more at the fact that Big dropped the ball? Because they pretty much had the game won, right? It was like 14-9, I think you said, Sean?
Yeah, 14-9, I think 13-7, and then 15-11 actually. So, I mean, like, they had leads at every turn at the end of that game, but
and they were playing on T side as well. So
yeah, I mean, hats off to Fragsters though. I mean, I was shocked that such a young team was able to make that comeback. And Refresh, they on the screen right there, went 7-0 in opening duels. All 5 players had over 20 kills. So I mean, it was a team effort, honestly. I was shocked. None of them faltered.
Yeah, there was basically 3 different stages in this game. The first stage on the T side, Fragsters did amazing, actually. Like, they started the game amazing. I thought they were just going to win outright, but still ended up with a solid amount. They had like 7 rounds on T side, so that's pretty legit. As I say, though, like, the difference was when Big got that really nice start themselves on T side, the frags were amazing. They were absolutely out-fragging the Fragsters guys, and that's what we said was supposed to be the edge for Fragsters. They were supposed to have more firepower, but that's the difference. The last third of the game was just Fragsters sitting on CT side, so you're just shooting people in your crosshair, nothing super advanced. But at the end of the game, they're the ones topping all the scoreboard. Meanwhile, Smooya's on 16 kills. There was a couple of players on Big kind of really dragged at the end there. So it feels like there was 3 different sections to the game, and at the end it was all the Fragsters.
Yeah, they certainly caught up in a big way, Fragsters. And I think when you're speaking about Smooya there, right, he's normally someone we spoke about on the desk, right? He should have been the one doing the heavy hitting alongside Tabson. Well, it was only Tabson and Next that really showed up there. Smooya kind of couldn't get his stuff together.
Yeah, Next started off the game with a really insane pistol run, actually. Got 3 opening kills. I think first 2 were in 2 bullets. So it was immediately one of those games where you're like, okay, Next is going to show up here. Yeah. He's going to have his kills at the end of this game, and this should go Big's way. But yeah, Smooya not showing up in this game was something Big couldn't afford, actually. And I mean, it's shocking to see Fragsters, such an underdog young team, take out Big, the experienced team, after losing both pistols this game.
Yeah.
And this is where, like, that veto really now comes into question. Because as we said, I don't think they picked this, no matter what they say, really believing this was the top map for them. I think this is a map that they took to try and punish Fragsters, thinking Fragsters is inexperienced, they're not going to want to play this map. And so when you then put yourself in a scenario with all those map points, all those chances to close it out, and you're on the T side and you're a tactical team, that's supposed to be exactly where you're definitely going to win the game, and they were unable to do it.
And I think one of the things here for Big as well is you've got to look at, okay, how were you not able to close this out, right? Because you had all the momentum, you had it all in your favor at that point. It was a winnable game, and this is almost not acceptable from their side of things.
Yeah, Big being the experienced team, obviously more tactics, having God be on your team. We saw so many different variations with the smoke wall outside. But it's the little things that cost Big this game. It's the fact that they kept on taking duels towards the lower bomb site in one-on-one scenarios. And I think if they just stuck together and hit a bomb site together, maybe instead of going through, decontamination area towards the door right there, they stuck to control when they hit lower in a pack. They probably trade out the kills, because oftentimes we saw Fragsters in these weird off angles in the middle of the open, but there's just no trade in sight from Big. And that's really what cost them in this game.
I actually feel sorry for Nex as well, because the guy, I mean, what was he on, like nearly 30 kills? He had a bunch of clutches as well that he won. Otherwise, this could have actually been an even more ridiculous game.
Now, do we think as well for Fragsters' side of things, right? Okay, they've managed to keep their composure as well, because you were right up against the wall, potentially losing the game. It's quite impressive for such a young team.
Sure, but like I said, I do think that the side that they were on helped a lot more there, where you're on the CT side. You know, if you're on nuke, you can just keep winning gun rounds. You know, you can rack the score up in that way. Terrorists, as you saw at the end there, like the ending of this game was a disgrace from Big. It was just people going one by one through choke points while the CT just sprays them down as they come in. Like, where's the trade potential? Where's the flashbang? Where's the smoke that you go? Like, it's like they had to use all that utility just to get into position to get onto a site.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's weird to harp on that same thing over and over again, but trading is so important in these top-level games, especially when someone like Refresh is 7-0 on opening duels. That means you have no trades on 7 different rounds against him, and that's ultimately like what Big should focus on. But more importantly, I think for the rest of this tournament, the way Big has been burned on nuke now multiple times, they have to have the realization that their map pool isn't as deep as they think it is. And this could really affect their mental state going into the future vetoes of this tournament.
I mean, the thing is, they've still got a whole bunch of maps they didn't play. They can still play 5 of the maps. It's just why veer into this one when you've had a couple of like signs from the universe, basically like it's not really for you. Especially don't go into it in best of 1. In best of 1, where you have the 3 bans, just get the other 2 out of the way. Use the third one kind of selectively, tactically. You're going to get a map you want, and that if they play to their map pool of 4 or 5 maps, they can absolutely be in the playoffs at this tournament.
I mean, if they just seriously had a code of SLTV, they would have had 10% more, and they would have won this game because they would have got 10% more skins if they deposited their skins into Hellcase.
Yes.
That was super smooth, Sean. I think I might leave some more of them up.
Sadly, what they did is waste 10% of my day.
Nope.
That's the main thing for you, isn't it, Duncan, right? They should have closed out earlier.
Exactly, yeah.
Stop wasting
Could
your
have already
time
been
there.
watching NRG versus Vegas Squadron right now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we will be getting onto that a little bit later, but we did speak about Refresh, right, on our gamer before this, and the potential for these players to shine and potentially get picked up by another topper Danish team coming into it. Did they kind of deliver to the level that you want them to? Did you see hopes of like, okay, these players have got that potential now?
Well, I mean, like I said, I do think that Big actually was under-equipped in terms of raw firepower. I actually would have given the edge to Fragsters there. So I'm not one of these guys who's super high on the Big team and thinks they're like a world-class squad.
Yeah.
But they've had the results, and certainly the community rates them very highly. So this is a pretty legitimate scalp to take at this point in time. Plus, you showed signs. If this is one of your weaker maps, I think if you get onto some of the maps out there, the Infernals of the world, you're going to have your shot against some of the bigger teams. So this is a tournament where Fragsters is absolutely one of the teams that can massively improve their stock. Because even though some of the other teams are actually at their level, everyone else has bigger name value.
Okay, well.
Yeah, I agree. I think this match really shows how blurry the lines are once you get to Tier 2, Tier 3 Counter-Strike outside of your Chalice, Liquid, Na'Vi phase. Those top teams that don't lose to lower tier teams.
Yeah.
This area, especially the younger teams now, are developing where they can beat, Big can lose to these guys. They can lose to Imperial. All these teams are so strong, not only skill-wise, but they're learning how to play the game on a tactical level. I think it's going to create a lot more upsets like this.
Well, Fragsters, they do manage to get the first game won here at Starladder. Can they do any more with their shining young talent in there? We're going to go to a quick break, but coming right up is going to be Vegas Squadron taking on NRG, so don't go anywhere.
Loot Bet. With Hellcase multi-cases, you are no longer restricted by random case opening mechanisms. Now, you are able to pick any of the cells containing skins and actually determine what you win. Use the promo code and dive right in.